Good morning, everybody. Wow, come on, we could do a bit better than that. Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to start with a rather sad but familiar tale. And it's a story of one organisation that, sadly, in today's world, is all too familiar. So this organisation suffered 4 months of productivity losses due to a critical incident that happened in their infrastructure. It had a huge reputational impact for them. They've never quite recovered. And sadly, the organisation that they were dealing with suffered a huge failure in customer success. This is an all too familiar story, not only for our customers and the organisations we work with, but it's also affecting the hackers as well. Oh yes. So let me tell you this little story. So there's a hacker group called Wexford who purchased ransomware as a service, and it didn't work. Oh, what a shame. They spent 4 months hacking various organisations, infiltrated the ransomware as a service, and when it came to encrypt the network drives, it failed. All the customer had to do was rename the file and it worked. Oh, what a shame it didn't work. Lockbit was the ransomware as a service company. They refused to accept responsibility. And for those of you who frequent the dark web, the reputational impact was absolutely huge, to the point whereby they had to rename their ransomware as a service offering. So terrible. I'm sure we are all feeling terrible for these hacker groups. The feedback from the ransomware as a service company to the hacker was, you should have tested it first. And that's what really hooked me onto this story, because I've been hearing that for the last 25 years working in this space, and I thought, yeah, it's about time you hackers had a little bit of what we know day in, day out. So there you go. So a little story. So we live in a world today whereby being resilient is absolutely everything. If you've not yet worked on a DR plan or a cyber resilience plan or some sort of plan for things to happen when things go awry, these things will look fairly familiar. Most of the time in the press we see cyber attacks, but it's also things like natural disasters, pandemics, update outages. So when a Windows update or some other third-party vendor goes slightly awry, boy, are we all in at the weekend working. So what tends to happen, and if we are focused on a resilience plan right now, is we tend to focus on the infrastructure. So if we take our DR site RTO, roughly around about 20 minutes for most organisations, these are well-rehearsed, well-delivered plans that, I've worked in organisations whereby we even practice them, a site-to-site failover. And we'll replicate databases, we'll replicate backups, we do all that kind of good stuff, and we're all very proud of ourselves and pat ourselves on the back if it hopefully just about works. We see a lot of organisations as well looking at IREs, isolation recovery environments, and these roughly take an hour. And this is where it is a totally isolated, dedicated environment that in the event of some sort of event we can bring back up. But nobody ever thinks about the endpoint. Research conducted by IGEL concludes that most DR and backup and recovery plans do not include the endpoint. And that's the world that we are aiming to change. Because we believe your infrastructure RTO should be the same for your infrastructure as it is across your endpoints. And we mean 100% of your endpoints, not a small subset of endpoints. Everybody needs to be able to go to work. Everybody needs to be able to communicate in the event of some sort of cyber incident, DR recovery scenario, some kind of event. It's not just having a few spare PCs sat in the back that we can all huddle around and try to share a single Teams chat. No, every user, particularly in the world of hybrid, needs to be able to go and carry on working. I will take this point. Has anybody worked for an organization that suffered a cyber incident? Okay. I'll very quickly tell you mine. As a previous employer, and we got hacked, and we were offline for 5 days. 5 days. And we were all remote workers, 5 days without any sort of communication other than your mobile phone in terms of what the hell was going on. It took a phone call from the security team to validate your ID card before you could then log a position in the queue in the service desk to regain access back to your accounts. Absolutely painful. Never felt so disconnected at work. Really strange, very odd feeling. To the point whereby we were wondering if we were even going to survive. Really scary experience. So, why IGEL, do you think? So, this is what I'm going to share with you. Let's start with the demo. So this is what we're going to do. Click, hopefully starts pressing play on the video. Okay, so here I am in my Outlook. I'm going to open up a rather dodgy looking attachment. Oh no, I've been encrypted. God damn it again. But that's okay, because I'm now going to reboot. So I'm going to protect my Windows instance that's now encrypted, and I'm going to select boot to IGEL. Eventually, I'm still getting over it. It's quite an emotional experience, you see, so you just need to calm down a little bit. Anyway, so we will now boot into IGEL. And within minutes, I am back up and I'm running. I can access all my productivity applications, so I can get back into my email. I can keep collaborating with my colleagues on Teams and find out WTF is going on. And I have that same user experience that I've been used to in Windows. So we're not talking about replacing Windows with IGEL as a route to solve your cyber resilience problems. We'd love it if you did. But do you know what? If you're quite a committed Windows customer, and that's absolutely fine, you have this as an insurance policy in the backup, just in case. And this could be for 100% of your users. And that's what I'm going to explore with you right now. So, IGEL, business continuity and disaster recovery. We probably need to get the marketing men involved in the name, but that's where we are right now. And that is, you use your in-place hardware, and effectively we can allow organizations to bypass compromised operating systems. That allows you to then connect to failover networks. So in the event of a disaster, do you spin up a red network that's specifically only used in the event of a disaster? You can configure your IGEL OS device to connect to that. We can isolate Windows. So what nobody tells you really is if you are under cyber insurance, the cyber insurance company will not allow you to boot that compromised Windows system until it's been forensically analyzed and validated as being okay. And it's not the fact that you can just all of a sudden, oh, let's just go re-image everything. No, they will insist that everything stays in place, it is analyzed, and that's when your cyber insurance will then pay out. So we can protect that. And then that can be shared with whoever's doing your forensic analysis. However, your users can get back to work in minutes. There are several ways that we can do this for you right now today. So obviously you can just install IGEL OS on your endpoints and just use our tools like you always have done to be able to get to your productivity applications. That's nothing new. But what we are talking about is new is what we call IGEL Dual Boot. And this is where you install you install IGEL OS alongside Windows. We used to call this a UD Pocket, we now call it USB Boot, but if the idea of partitioning your hard drive and putting IGEL OS on there isn't really for you, then you still have the option of having emergency break glass UD Pockets that you can still use to on a compromised system to get users back access to their systems. But let's take a look at Dual Boot. So we install alongside the Windows partition. You don't need to, all that hard work you've been doing in deploying your Windows 11 image, you don't need to kind of change any of that. We will install alongside, we install on top of Windows. We will then partition your hard drive, we'll carve out roughly 2 gig or so. You don't need to do any decommissioning, and users do not need to come back into the office. We use Windows tools to get IGEL OS out there onto those endpoints. We'll even support things like BitLocker. So, if you've got BitLocker enabled drives, IGEL OS will kind of take care of that bit. And via our preventative security model, your IGEL partition is isolated away from Windows. In the event of a disaster, end user selects IGEL OS, or you pre-configure that through the admin console and say, we're in a disaster scenario, get all the users to boot to IGEL OS 12. We can now also update the IGEL partition via Windows. So we will install a Windows service, and then all the updates that come from our management tool will then be used to update the IGEL OS partition. So what you don't have to do is, IGEL have released a new version of our OS, you need to get everybody to boot into IGEL OS, do the updates, shut down, go back into Windows, because that's a pain in the ass. So kind of side-by-side upgrades for IGEL OS. So what does that mean? So from within our management tool, that means you have visibility of your IGEL devices even if they're booted into Windows. You can see them, you can manage them, you can configure your IGEL policies, the updates, the applications that they're going to need. Maybe a new version of Citrix Workspace app comes out and you need to get that down to your DR endpoints if you like. You can fully do that through, even though the user's using Windows day in, day out. So your recovery partition, the first thing you don't want to do is when you have a disaster is boot into IGEL and think, we've got a few updates we need to do before everybody can go back to work. Nobody's going to love that. So that's that. And how do we do that? So do you then want to deploy a management infrastructure, just look after the thing that hopefully you don't have to use? So we offer, yes, you can still deploy obviously our UMS solution. If you're an IGEL customer already, it's exactly the same UMS, it's exactly the same IGEL OS, there is no difference. It's really a licensing thing that we're talking about, but yes, you can host us on premises. You can also take us as a service. So that in the event of that activation of your BC and DR licensing, your UMS is there, ready to go. Or you can consume it via one of our MSP partners as a per user per month license cost. So, in that kind of world whereby, hey, do you know what? I'm very committed and very happy with my Windows world. I'm using Windows on my endpoint day in, day out. This is that insurance policy that you can use that will allow you to have 100% RTO for your endpoint estate if that Windows estate gets compromised. Any conversations? We've got a demo of this on our booth out there today, but other than that, I'll leave you for now. Thank you very much.